morning. Good morning, everyone on Facebook and YouTube. We are here at the Monday Morning Motivator meeting. And we've got our sales launch coders there. Say, oh, sales launch code students and everyone following us on YouTube and on our JPM Sales Partners list. Thank you so much for joining us. I am a little bit groggy this Monday. Had a big weekend. It was my 40th birthday on Friday, and my husband and sister and mom and all my sisters threw me a massive party at this really cool NASA training center that's close to us. And there was it was a space theme and everyone was dressed up like futuristic space aliens. And I don't know, however their interpretation of the future was. Some people were like, I'm sorry, I'm not dressed like the future. I'm like, how do you know what the future looks like? You're probably dressed fine. And they had there was a training center where they had a centrifuge, I think it is, so that the astronauts basically spin around. Like, imagine that Gravitron ride that you went on as a kid, but it's like 400 times faster. So probably a nightmare by all means for someone who gets motion sickness. But I got to sit in the sphere and play with all the buttons and stuff. It was really fun. It was just nice to have everybody out and having fun and having a good time. So I am a little bit groggy. But showing up anyway, as you all do in your jobs too. So, all right, let's get along with, if it's your first Monday meeting, we're taking accountability first with metrics, and then we'll move on into a marketing tip for the week. We're using something that's working for me that I share with you each week from a marketing perspective, and then we'll move on to Motivation Minute. Today, we're going to be talking about doing things that scare you. And I know that's something common that's shared around, like, do things that scare you, And the question is, how do you do them? Because that's an easy thing to say, totally different thing to do. It's scaring you. So I'm doing a couple things right now that scare me to death. So I thought I'd share with you the process of exactly what's going on in my head and how I overcome those things every day. Sound good? All right, cool. So let's get moving with our metrics for the week. What were your numbers? Write them. You could put them in the chat if you really want to stay accountable to the whole world. How many outbound marketing activities did you do? How many of those converted into interested parties or leads? How many of those leads did you convert into discovery meetings? And then how many discovery meetings converted into presentations or demos? And how many of those converted into sales? And finally, how many of those, or how many total referrals did you receive that go back into the top of your funnel? And you can continue building that sales cycle out. We were talking today, that last week in our group, in our insider group coaching call, that's part of my program, but it's something I thought I'd share with you guys about long sales cycles. So we're talking about how the funnel relates to longer sales cycles and what to do. How do you know how to close the sale if the close isn't always getting money at the end, right? It's an exchange of money. Sometimes in longer sales cycles, has to be some kind of pilot program, right? Some kind of trial. We'll go into more details about how to structure those at different times, but if your sales cycle is such that you're, I'm talking about like 6-figure products, where you're selling into like government or large corporations where you're dealing with multiple departments or education, right? These are going to be longer sales cycles. Typically, you don't go in one meeting. Hey, Libby, go in one meeting and just close it up, right? So in those long sales cycles, what you want to do is just define it. You're going to open up that sales funnel and add a couple more steps and define what the next step is in the cycle. And every time, and if you're not sure what that next step is for your customer, that's what you define in the discovery process. So in the discovery process, one of the questions I would tell you to ask is, what is your decision-making process? right? And they'll tell you, well, first we do this department, then we do this department, then we have to do a pilot, then we have to get budget approval, then we have to do this, right? So you take note of all of that, and that becomes your sales cycle for that client. And at the end of each step, the close is the next step in the funnel, right? So typically what happens when I hear sales presentations that aren't refined, at the end, the salesperson doesn't actually try to close the sale at all. They just give all the information, and then the customer closes the sale. The customer either says like, oh, this won't work for us or something like that. Or they'll say like, okay, well, that sounds good. Now I have to talk to so-and-so, or now it has to do this part. So they've actually closed the sale. But we want to be the ones that close the sale. So if the next step is setting up a pilot program, then at the end of that sales demo conversation, my goal and what I would have set expectations to accomplish in that meeting is to set up the pilot program, the date, the actual date, the people that need to be involved, get it on the calendar. Before I leave that meeting, that's the next step. Cool? Because then you've closed that part of the sale. If you leave it to after that meeting, there's so many things that could happen between now and then. And plus, they're serious. And if they're not serious, they'll have objections, and then you can actually overcome them instead of avoiding them and not being able to overcome them because you're not there and they're trying to overcome them themselves. Okay, so that's metrics. On to Marketing Minute. So one thing that's working for me right now in my business is live speaking engagements, right? I teach you guys 13 different ways to build your pipeline with prospects. And I always feel, even from a salesperson's perspective, even if you're getting leads, you want to be building your own pipeline as much as possible. So one of those 13 is live events and speaking engagements. And I spoke at the annual Women in Wealth conference last Thursday in New York. It was awesome. I was on a panel of 6 powerhouse women that were making massive changes in New York. I felt like extremely humbled because I'm like, oh, I'm just a sales trainer, but they were doing these, massive projects and changing the world. And so live speaking engagements like that are typically, yes, sometimes you can submit to speak at them. And certainly that's part of the plan. I've personally never had to, submit to speak at an event. It's usually people that know me through networks who will reach out and say, hey, we thought of you for this panel. Or I know of an event that they're doing and I say, hey, is that something that I would be a good fit to speak on, And then I have 4 or 5 messages that I have kind of packed, and talks that I have packed of different points that I could talk about. And then I'll ask the person hosting it, which one of these do you think would be most impactful in your conference? Because, whatever the speaking engagement is, there's some kind of purpose or mission to it, right? It's something that the person putting together wants to accomplish. So I make it all about really them, not about me. Of course, I'm going to be promoted regardless. I'm there. My face is there. They get to know me. It's a great way to get in front of your target audience and for them to get to know you personally, which we know is the first step in the sale, right? You do business with people you know, like, and trust. So in any kind of marketing activity, that's the primary goal. So I'll make it about them and what they want to accomplish, and help them as much as possible to accomplish that goal in their conference. So which one of these speaking topics would be most appropriate for what you want to accomplish? And then I could always repurpose them and highlight certain things for different groups. Like I was speaking in front of a conference about women and wealth. So I took the lesson and then I turned it into, how to attract wealth and why you might be pushing away wealth unknowingly, right? By certain limiting beliefs. And so it was really powerful and it worked because it was really targeted toward what they wanted to, what the conference wanted to accomplish. And it was more about the people in the audience. It wasn't about me, even though the first question was, tell us your story. I barely told my story. I kind of told it in terms of how it could help them, right? So speaking engagements are definitely a great way to get out there, and it probably isn't the first thing you do. Like I said, you do stuff like this where you just get on like YouTube Live or Facebook Live, and then people are like, "Oh, she can speak. Well, she can hold an audience. She has something to say." So, or they see you at another event and then they want you to speak at their event. So it's something that can happen organically. But it's a really great way to get a message out to a lot of people in a live audience. And then you always want to have a call to action at the end, just like any other marketing activity. So what is the way that they can get in touch with you that's like super easy? And that totally depends on your business. For me, at the end, it was, hey, if you want to learn more about what I do and how we can work together, I have a free training that you'll love. And I give them, the website. I go like, you can jump on there right now. It'll take you 2 seconds, register. And I tell them the letters as they're typing into their phones, right? And then usually if it's, the conference will send something out on your behalf as well. So anyway, that's just one way to work that in. It's just remember, like any marketing activity, it's not a sales presentation. It's not a chance to sell what you do. I think that's a huge mistake people make when they do any of these speaking engagements or like speaking at a trade show, is they approach it like the trade show I went to a couple weeks ago in Philly, where every workshop wasn't a workshop at all. It was all people selling their programs. So to me, that's not marketing. That's selling, and it's too soon. And that's why people feel icky when they're in those rooms being sold to, and they came, to a workshop, right? Okay. So that's Marketing Minute. Everyone go out there and one of the first things that you can do to get engagements is just tell people that you're interested in doing them. Especially you want to focus on places where you feel like your target audience will be sitting there in front of you, right? Those would be the most effective, and they're going to hear what you have to say better because they're your target audience. Cool? Awesome. So transitioning from that into Motivation Minute, a lot of people ask me, how do you do like so many things? You accomplish so many things, blah, blah, blah. And I feel like one of the major, there's a lot of like things that I've thought about over the years of why that is. But I think one of the major things is being able to overcome fear, right? And that sounds like simple and trite, but fear is basically the one thing that would hold you back from anything that you want to do, right? And so like I'll be brought an opportunity or come across an opportunity that seems really exciting to me, and I want to do that. And then maybe I even commit to do that. And as soon as I commit to do that, I get terrified. Like, wait, maybe I shouldn't do that. Why? Look at all the things that could go wrong, right? So for instance, like there's a karate tournament coming up in a couple weeks. I'm like, I know I should do it. But in the back of my head, I'm like, you know what? I have been out of practice. I might look like an idiot. I might get hit because I have been out of practice. I might get really hurt, and so is it worth it? So all these things go on in my head, even though that I know at the end of the day, after it's all over, going through it makes me stronger and better at what I do. And some of you might have a fear of cold calling, right? So here's how I relate general fears in life and how they can help you in sales. Because if you know how your own mind works and you can overcome fears in other areas of your life, then you become better at overcoming your fear in anything to do with sales, whether it's making cold calls or doing presentations or following up the 10th time, right? Like, what is that fear that's holding you back of doing the things that someone else has subscribed to you to say, like prescribed to you, say like, okay, do X, Y, and Z and you'll get this result. And then you do X and Y, but Z is like, I don't want to do Z. Because you're scared, right? So how do you overcome that feeling? I'll give you another example at this Women in Wealth conference that I was at. Speaking at the event, fine, right? Like I've spoken at a lot of events. I've got like a little package of what I know I'm comfortable speaking about that I don't really have to rehearse a ton. But then the organizer goes, hey, Jess, I heard you have a band, right? I'm like, yeah. She's like, can you sing at the end of the show, at the end of the conference? And I was like, well, I suppose I could. Is there a piano there? No, there's no piano. You'd have to. I was like, well, I don't have my band or anything. No. So I asked her 3 times. I told her no basically 3 times until she finally convinced me that I should do something. And I was thinking about even singing someone else's song just because I was so scared to sing my own. And I finally decided that I could sing this one song that was really appropriate for the women in the audience. But it's a rap, and it's a rap about body image issues. And I felt like, probably 99% of the audience of any audience of women is going to relate to some kind of like body image issues. But when I'm in my band, I have my whole band behind me, and I'm dressed like totally different than I would at a business conference. So I just felt like this is going to be weird. Like I'm doing a show, but everything else is wrong, And what will people think of me? Will they think I'm like, but she said she does that thing and now she's doing this thing. And so all these things were going on in my head. And I was like, I really shouldn't do this, right? But somewhere I felt like that's the thing that you're supposed to do. Every time that feeling comes up, like, hey, maybe someone can be affected by the song, or maybe it's entertaining, or maybe it even helps my band. Someone hears it and goes like, that's amazing. I want to work with you on that, which is actually what happened. Someone emailed me after, like, your speech was great, but I loved your song better, and wanted to work on me with stuff. But then you justify it with all these negative things that could possibly happen that would make it 100 times worse, right? And for me, I have a cycle of things that go on in my head, and it seems to always come same thoughts, the same limiting beliefs. And so I committed to her, so I knew I had it to do that one. But there's another one coming up tomorrow that I'm dealing with right now. And it's this, I'm going to a hot jazz band camp all week, right, for piano, to get better at improv piano. And when I first saw the posting of it in a Facebook group or something back in January, I was like, that sounds really cool. It was like 5-day intensive with the best jazz improv teachers, and it was specialized to your instrument, and then you'd play as a band, and then at the end we opened for the Gotham Jazz Festival in New York. And I'm like, wow, that's an amazing opportunity. You get to learn, and then we're performing, and all week there's all jazz jam sessions that they want you to go to, and they only accept 6 people from each instrument. So I guess they have formed like 6 bands at the end of it. And they were only looking for horns. They were like, we have a couple horn spots open. Please apply. And I was reading it, and I was like, well, I don't play horn, right? I was like, let me just apply for piano, And so I applied, and then, you had to send in a sample, and I just sent them some links from Instagram, because usually in the past I would spend like hours trying to put together a 30-second sample, but I already had some improv jazz stuff on my Instagram. So I sent them links to that. And then like a week later, I got an acceptance, like, thanks so much for applying. We want to accept you for piano, and all this other stuff, details about how to, confirm and everything like that. And immediately I thought, there must be some mistake. Like, why are they, something's wrong. Like, they probably didn't have enough piano players, and they were desperate. And so they put me in there, or somebody just dropped out and they had an extra. It was like, there's some kind of weird thing, magical thing that happened, and I'm not supposed to be there because I'm not good enough. And I don't play jazz piano enough. That's why I wanted to go to this thing. And now they're going to make me play in front of everybody. And I'm scared to death, right? And all these fears come through my head. So I'm going to show you what happens in my head, because the same exact thing happens when I go to do a sales presentation or a cold call that I'm like super scared about. But the more you overcome these things in other areas of your life, the easier it is to overcome it in any part of what you do. So the way I get better at sales and sales presentations and marketing is by overcoming my fears in other areas. And then that makes me stronger as a whole. And I can apply the same process when I'm doing things with much less risk, like making a cold call, right? So if I walk onto a mat in a karate tournament where I could get hit in the head and have like brain damage for life, that's a much higher risk than someone hanging up on me and telling me I'm an idiot on a cold call, right? So I'm always putting myself in positions where like the risk is much worse in other areas, or to me they are. And then when I apply them to sales, it's like no big deal, right? Like, come on, Jess, you got this, right? Like you're a black belt. Come on, you got this. And then the same thing, like, so for this piano camp, I'll tell you what's going on in my head. I'm thinking, I'll work back and I'll observe my thoughts, right? So number one is observe your thoughts. What is actually going on in my head? Because I'll justify all the reasons then that I shouldn't go. Like I shouldn't take off. I'm going to have to take off a week of work. This isn't a great time to take a week off. Everything's so busy. I have to, I can't do any consults all week. I'm going to be away from my kids, right? There's a lot of reasons not to go. But really the big reason I don't want to go is because I'm scared I'll mess up, right? And everyone will laugh at me and they'll realize that I'm a terrible piano player. Like I've been playing since I'm 5. I can play piano, but I'm not like a piano. Like I'm not Herbie Hancock. Okay, like, that would be amazing. But I'm not Herbie Hancock, and there's even other areas like I'm even more confident in my vocal ability than I am in my piano ability. But this is why I wanted to get better at it in the first place. So I'll go like everyone's gonna figure out you're a fraud. Like that you are probably playing at a 2nd grade piano level right now. And they're going to be like, what is that girl doing at the piano? Right. And this is made even worse because the absolute first session of this camp is an open jam where we all will get on our instruments and show what level we're at. like, can I just I'll tell you it's 0. Can we just be 0? Because I'd rather like not get up there on like the first day of camp and completely embarrass myself. I'm here because I want to learn, And then I think about, and then always underlying, if I was skinnier, then it wouldn't matter how bad I played. Like people would still like me. Like, yes, I'm being totally honest and vulnerable because these are the thoughts that go on in my head and something's going on in your head. That consistent theme that comes up that keeps you from doing the things that you want to do. So observe your thoughts. What are the consistent themes that you think of that are holding you back? So for me, it's always something to do about my outward appearance. In the case of piano, I have insecurities about that because I've been fired from piano jobs before. And I know the feeling of sitting there and not even knowing what key everyone's playing in and not being able to figure it out. And then the whole song's over and I still haven't even figured out what key we're in. Like I've been there and I'm afraid it'll happen over and over. So if that happens, what's the worst case scenario? People think like I shouldn't be there or I quit or what? Like, are people going to throw things at me? Are they going to throw tomatoes at me? I don't know. So observe your thoughts. What are the consistent themes that come through? Because even sometimes going on the karate mat, I'm thinking about how I look. And I feel like I'm a better athlete if I look okay, right? Or somehow that helps me with my confidence. What are the constant themes? And then are those things true? So then ask yourself, is that thought, is that belief that I'm hearing true? And mind you, most beliefs that you have in your mind are created before you're the age of 5. Okay? They were created by your family, friends, environment, media, like all those, stories we were brought up with, the rules, don't talk to strangers, money is evil, right? All of those create our beliefs. And most of what we believe, science has shown was created before we were even 5 years old. So here we are, adults walking around with 5-year-old beliefs. And so that's why when you start to dissect what your beliefs are, they're going to sound really dumb. Like they're going to sound like 5-year-old beliefs. Like no one will like me. They will figure out that I'm really dumb. They're gonna figure out that I have no idea what I'm talking about, right? And all of a sudden you forget everything, that all the schooling you've gone through and all the accomplishments you've had and everything that would give them reason, to not feel that way, right? But we're focusing on what our core beliefs are, which were formed at a very young age before we had a choice of what we wanted to adopt or not, right? So observe your thoughts, find your common theme thoughts that hold you back. Like what's that one thing that you're always thinking about before you do something that scares you? And then like people won't like me, I'm dumb, they're going to think I'm dumb, or they're going to figure out I'm dumb. They're going to figure out I'm ugly and therefore like not worthy of anything. These are elementary thoughts that are running our lives now. And then decide if that's true, right? So now you can use the same process that you're using to prove why you're right, to prove why you're wrong. So okay, that's what's going on in my head. Why is that not actually true? And then I'll build up evidence to show me like why that's not true at all. Okay. And like in the case of this piano band camp that starts tomorrow morning, I am shaking. I've been thinking about it for 3 weeks about like, they're probably going to kick me out or something, which I guess fine. What's the worst thing that happens? I come home. But here I'm thinking like, I'm an adult. This is my worst case out, right? I'm an adult. If I show up and I hate it and I'm miserable and everyone is laughing at me, I will just go home. Like I don't have to deal with it, right? If it's as bad in my mind as what I'm playing it out to be, I will just leave. I'm not a kid. I don't like have to stay there because my mom said I had to, right? So that's actually what I'm thinking of now. I'm like, if it's terrible, I'll just go home. I have no obligations to anybody. This was supposed to be for me. So that's my out. But I convinced myself why I shouldn't listen to those thoughts, right? Because there's something that I want to accomplish here, why I decided to do it in the first place, right? Or even if I just thought it would be fun, or it'd be a good experience, there was reason behind why I initially took those steps. And now that it's time to do it, I'm scared. So working through that fear and understanding what those thoughts are and if they're true. So then I prove them false, but mostly I do it anyway. That's the time where I decide, okay, what my fear is totally unfounded. I know this because these are thoughts that I have over and over, no matter what I do. Like, how does the karate and piano and sales have in common? For me, all those things. Like I get the same thoughts run through my mind with like different details each time, right? They're going to know that they're going to know that I probably shouldn't have earned this black belt when I get on there. They're going to wonder like why they gave her a black belt. She doesn't look like a black belt, that kind of thing. Right? These are common themes throughout. So then now you've logically proved to yourself why you should do it anyway. And then you do it anyway, because then action is the last part of that. So observe your thoughts, find common themes to the thoughts that are holding you back. Another term for that is limiting beliefs. Not all beliefs are limiting, but certainly these ones that we're talking about now are limiting. And then prove yourself wrong, just like you tried to prove yourself right. Prove yourself wrong, gather evidence, and then take action. And it's that action that is the actual overcoming of the fear. Like now that I know like what time my bus leaves and I have my apartment ready and all that, like everything's set up, like I'm doing all the motions to do the thing, right? It would actually be more difficult to back out. Like I got my mom here for the week for the kids, like all the schedules are written out, like all that stuff. I paid for the camp thing. So I'm taking actions that aren't scary. And then I guess the scariest part will be the first day that I sit down at the piano bench, right? And maybe I'll like shoot a video and I do that just so like you can observe, or I can observe me doing that, because I feel like it helps other people. So like, it's not that I didn't have any fear about it. It's about, I had the fear, but I'm so used to working through this process of doing it anyway, that I'm going to do it anyway. Like when I first applied, I was like, that would be an amazing opportunity. And I do. And now I feel that less and less as the fear is coming up, right? But you know what? It probably is an amazing opportunity, or maybe it isn't. Maybe like nothing comes out of it. Maybe I don't learn anything, but I'm not going to die. Well, that's also another thing actually goes through my head. Like I'll be like, at last resort, I'll be like, what if I die on my way there? What if I'm in New York and it's like another 9/11 and I'm like, you know what? I knew I shouldn't have gone to this camp, right? Like I'm not afraid to share this stuff with you because I know it's what goes on in your head too, whether or not you've observed it yet, right? Okay, so what are the 5 steps? You guys repeat them back to me. I didn't put them on my board. It is, so you've made the decision initially somewhere, right? But now you're scared. So observe your thoughts, like step on the outside and looking in, like you're looking into your head and be like, what's going on in the inside there? Open up, like open up your brain, and then observe your thoughts, and then find those common themes across everything you do, whether it's like cold calling Lou or jumping out an air. See, I would never jump out an airplane because the risk there really is death. So like, to me, that's not a risk worth taking for a thrill. Like to me, playing the piano tomorrow at this like jam thing is probably as scary as jumping out of a plane. So I'll take like the one with the less risk. But what are the common themes holding you back from the things that you really want to do that feel like are going to propel you forward or like help you in some way, even if you don't know exactly how? You were just at one moment inspired and you were like, I have to do this. And you didn't know why. And it's hard to, get that feeling back, but those are the ones you have to go with, right? And so observe your thoughts, find the common themes, prove yourself wrong. Jessica, those thoughts are coming up again. Those aren't right. And those are definitely not reasons to keep you from doing this thing. Okay. You're not going to give in to that, are you? I'll challenge myself. No, of course I'm not going to. I'm going to be a big girl and I'm not going to be scared. I'm going to be scared that everyone's going to laugh at me. Okay. So what if they do? It's not going to happen. But if they did, like, I'd probably be laughing too, because if it's that bad, I would probably just have to laugh it off. What's the worst case scenario? That's part of what goes on in like proving myself wrong. Like, so what is the worst case scenario, Jess? Like what? You fall off the piano bench and everyone sees your underwear? Like that, it wouldn't be the first time for that either. So like, no worries. Okay. And then the last one is action. Take the action anyway. Take the small actions that bring you less fear. And then when it's time, and then it makes it, then it kind of sets everything up so that it's harder not to take the action than it is to take the action. And these are then like for big events, but let's drill that down to cold calling. How does that action apply to cold calling? It's like, okay, I'm scared to cold call, but I'm going to create my list. That's not scary, right? I'm going to put the data together and I'm going to make like my call sheet with all the numbers so that I can just boom, boom, boom down the sheet, right? Not scary. I'm going to put together my script. Not scary, right? I hope. Right? So I'll like do all the things that aren't scary one step at a time. And then like, I'm going to schedule it in my calendar at 1:00. I'm going to start cold calling, right? And I'm going to have my spreadsheet ready to go. I'm going to put an alarm on my phone. I'm going to make sure my calendar's blocked out, right? So I don't have the excuse of like, something else came up more important. So I'm going to set up all those things that aren't scary. And then when it's time to pick up the phone and make the first call, that's when I have to take the action. Like, even if you have to break it down, like pick up the phone, turn the phone on, open the phone app, like dial the 1 and then the 2, right? And I know what's going on in cold calling. Really, the cold calling fear is that the person on the other line is going to be a jerk and be mean to you, right? But I'll tell you the reality is 80% of the time you're going to get a voicemail anyway. So you're not going to have to deal with anybody telling you you're a jerk face and why did you bother me in the middle of the day, you jerk face. And don't ever call me again because you're a jerk and you don't know what you're talking about and you're wasting my time, right? So what is the worst case scenario of what they could say? 80% chance you're not going to talk to them anyway. You're going to leave a nice voicemail and you get to control the whole conversation that way. Then the other 20% they are going to answer. And then in my experience, even as nice as I am and friendly and I have a poignant message and I have a product that could help them, still like 1 out of 20 people will be like a real jerk. Like they will say like, stop wasting my time. I keep seeing you call, stop, right? So what's the worst thing? Okay. The more you can actually allow that to happen, so you can realize you're not dead after it. You're like, nobody shot you. They just hung up on you, or they just said, please don't call. Like, I've never had anybody be like really like rude name calling, but I have when people have had like, I had someone once bought a playbook template and they didn't get the email with the template in it. And they wrote me this whole email that said, it's like all automated and it, was working for everyone else. Right. So I knew it was probably like in his spam box or something, but he immediately wrote me this email about how like, I'm a fraud and I must be stealing people's money because he didn't get this template. And he's going to report me and all this stuff. And I'm like, dude, it was a $37 template. I'm not going to scam people at $37, but but that's the worst case. And when it happens, then the best response is be like, sorry that, I'm sorry he's having a bad day. And he felt like that was the appropriate way to respond to not receiving an email. Like, have you never like been in a situation where you're supposed to get an email and didn't, and it was in spam or got stuck in like internet land or something? Like immediately blaming it, the other person must be like a fraud in some way. So obviously I know I'm not, so that doesn't bother me. And so if you have strong beliefs that what you're doing is important, ultimately when that happens, you can brush it off your shoulders easily because you see how ridiculous it is that someone would respond that way. Okay. So that's how you apply that whole thing into cold calling, or, that when making a presentation, or like I said, following up the 11th time. Because that's another thing, like even if you haven't spoken to someone 10 times and you're thinking about like, should I follow up again? Like I'm saying like someone who submitted a lead and said they were interested and needed your help, and then you couldn't get in touch with them. Like what's holding you back from continuing to follow up the 11th time, or once a quarter, or once a month or something like that? Like what is that thing? It's your version of what's going on the other side, or what they're thinking about you. It all goes back to what you think they think about you, right? And if we logically walk through that, you'd be like, well, I don't care what people think about me. Well, you do. That's why it bothers you. And that's okay. Of course, it's okay to care what people think about you, but to a certain extent, right? Certainly someone who doesn't know you and has an opinion of you can't be that valid anyway, right? Well, I hope that helps you guys in overcoming any, areas. If you put yourself in as many frightening situations as possible and learn how to overcome those fears, all these other things become easier as you apply them to different areas of your life and different things that you want to do, whether in business or personal or what have you. Cool? All right. Have a great week, and I'll see you next Monday. I'll let you know if I survived band camp, adult band camp. And I'll yeah, I mean, I'm hoping on the other side I'll say, it wasn't as bad as I thought. But right now in my 5-year-old belief system, I'm thinking everyone's going to laugh at me and they're going to wonder how I got into this festival. So I will see you if you're around in New York. The festival's sold out, but if you have tickets to the Gotham Jazz Festival, I'll be playing at somewhere between, like, I think noon and 2 is like the window of where we open for the festival, which is an all day, all night festival. Actually, it's kind of happening all week in different spots all around town at night, but Sunday is like the actual ticketed festival. So hope to see you there in New York. All right. Bye, everyone. Have a great week. Yes, end.